Hello, my name is Brant Hunt, and my channel is Discerning What is True on YouTube. And I'm also live on Facebook and also on Odyssey. And what I want to do today is we're going to have another talk with Phil Langdon. We may talk about a particular book today called Numbers, if we get to that. And then also, Phil has a new book, and I figured he would share some things about what was important and why he has published this particular book. And so from that end, I'd just like to invite him, and he just disappeared.
I've got it. I've got it.
There he is.
Got it.
So, so I'll let Phil take the floor. Thank you for being here, Phil.
That's my pleasure. Thank you for asking. Hi, everyone. My name's Phil. I'm 53. I'm from London. I had the spiritual ascension experience 9 years ago, which involves meeting God, who is your true self, and ascending out of a normal existence, as it were, for a moment or two. And then you come back and you've seen, it turns out, the root of our existence, which is quite a big deal in a way. But sorry.
It's okay. You just mentioned something. Maybe for people who are new to the audience, it would be good to go. You said that your true self is God.
Yes.
Would you like to elaborate a little bit more on that as kind of a basic foundation point of what we're all about here?
Yeah. There's a lot of talk of God, whether he has a persona or not. If God is ineffable, how can he be a being that we can relate to, and all this sort of thing. But it turns out truth is singular, and truth is all there is, and God represents this truth, this essence of being that is eternal. Truth is eternally true, of course, so it's never not true. Therefore, truth is what's called immanent. It's the only thing that really exists, because it never goes away. So this is our foundation, in effect, of our existence. It gets very philosophical, by the way. You have to get very philosophical about this. So when it comes to the person, we are an observer, and we represent the discreteness of the eternal or eternity. So if you were to perceive eternity, it would look like an infinite expanse to you. And what we have is a relationship between discreteness, a point of view, and continuity, which develops into what we find in life. We are discrete individuals, and the world around us is a continuous array of created things. So our true self, we exist through this thing called time. There are changes. We can put aside for the moment the idea there is no such thing as time. And look at the fact that there is change, and everything that changes is processing. So everything manifest and physical is automatically processing. It's stuff, this physical thing, this process. It's not beings that process. We simply latch onto it as eternal, as eternity itself. We can look at this process and apply it to ourselves and build ourselves effectively an eternal house that we can use while we're not incarnating. You see, this gets very, very deep, and it's a point of view that goes beyond any physical life. It looks at you as an eternal being, not just a physical person. Okay. So in time, imagine yourself in the infinite future. As you can see, as you can tell in your life, you've gone from being quite ignorant in your birth to a developed human being as you get older, which is very natural. So an old person is considered to be potentially a wise person. You see,
right.
So if you extrapolate that to the infinite, imagine how developed you could be if you existed eternally and infinitely. Imagine yourself in the infinite future of all this idea of developing yourself into perfection. In the infinite future, the extrapolated infinity, you will automatically be perfected in that state at that point, won't you? It's automatic. You barely even have to think about it, because you'll know that, well, in an infinite future, of course I'll be perfect if I exist that long. So imagine that version of you from the infinite future, who is perfected beyond the need for anything physical, coming back to this moment in time right now to meet you as if it's a different person. This individual that you meet, who is your infinite future self, literally is the perfection of your own self, is called Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, the persona called Krishna, that is you. That's your perfected self. It's a personification in the story of the Bhagavad Gita to represent your perfected self, who comes to meet you when you ascend. And this is the person that is God when you meet God. This is the persona of God, because God is the perfection of all things. So this persona that is a part of you, yes, it's from the infinite future, but you are linked to it because it is you in the future. If you see what I'm saying, there's no cutoff between you and this person. That is you. So you come to meet yourself. Your perfected you comes to meet yourself at whatever moment you're going to ascend. And that's your spiritual union event with God. So you'll meet this person as if they're outside of you. But what you're doing is becoming aware of your own singular spiritual nature when we meet God, because God is within. So when you have this sacred trance, it projects your own nature to the outside of your awareness. And so you can become aware of your highest self as if they are another person in this place that you have now become aware of, which is absolutely still. Stillness is part of your true nature, and God is perfectly still. He has no need to do anything or move. God is perfect. You see, there's no need to process anything because it's all been done. So stillness is an aspect of this reunion, as it were. To reunify with God is the meaning of the word religion, by the way.
Yeah.
That's what religion means. It means if you pursue this truth, you will meet your true self. See, by reading the word of God, the idea is that you're contemplating the truth, and by doing that, you will understand the truth, which is God. And this is the procedure for finding God and becoming an angel or an illuminator. These are just different words for the same event, where you find yourself, your true self, and you know yourself as your true self from that moment on. We call that God, but it's an aspect of your own self. It's the perfected you that is potential right now, let's say.
The opportunity is here. You have that opportunity. It's
because it's perfectly still. All you have to do is relax, and it's already there. So you find it by relaxing and just letting go of all this physical stuff. You need to be able to detach from everything and let go of everything mentally, so your mind comes to absolute rest because there's nothing left to worry about. That's a big problem for people, to stop worrying about things. Yeah, but my kids, my husband, my wife, this is going to happen, my job, everything. Is there ever a moment when you can literally switch everything off? It's very important to be able to do that, to have that control over your mental experience.
Yeah, it's I was going to share something here, a picture. This is from Isaiah chapter 26, and it says basically, "In that day shall this song be sung in the land of Judah. We have a strong city. Salvation will God appoint for walls and bulwarks. Open ye the gates, that the righteous nation which keepeth the truth may enter in." Verse 3 is probably the crux of it. "Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusteth in thee." And verse 4 says, "Trust ye in the Lord forever, for in the Lord Jehovah is everlasting strength." I won't go any more, but that's just so. The verse 23, the verse 3 here stands out simply to me. "Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed," that's past tense, ed, "on thee, because he trusted in thee."
Yeah.
In which it just, I think it gives an indication of what you're talking about. We're not putting our minds, we're not at perfect peace. You see, we're worried about all these things going on in our day. So you follow, I think you know what I'm speaking of. So
yeah, the funny thing is with that is that we are actually the peace that they're talking about. That is your essence. That's your actual nature. You are naturally peace itself, and life has literally gotten on in the way. It's been dumped on you, as it were, and so
right.
you feel the weight of its yoke. That expression. I feel the weight of its yoke
Yeah, there's a
bearing
word
on
called,
me.
yeah, there's a word in scripture, I think says burden. I think
Yeah,
that's the
burden.
burdens of the world. And
That's
it's
right.
heavy because something's always on you. It's like
Yeah.
a weight that holds you down and never,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. So meeting God or your true self proves to you that God, as your true self, has zero weight to carry, nothing at all. He has no weight. He's free to be happy and peaceful. God is always like that. And it proves to you that's your natural state. And that what have you been doing all this time? Why haven't you remembered that? You know?
Right. So,
Yeah.
hello, Layla. How you doing? Good to see you. She says,
Hey,
"Good
Lola.
day."
Hey.
I think she'll have to tell us where she's from. She's in Jolly, England, I think, or Scotland. I don't know much about those cities where in England, but anyway, I know she's resides in the island there where you guys are
Right.
at, and it's
Oh, okay.
so Phil is. So she's either English or Scottish or whatever.
Right. Near me
She's
then.
talking about cultivating inner peace. She speaks of within you, talking what you just shared. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. That's the funny thing about peace. Yeah, it's automatically there. So if we stop doing stuff, it's just there. That's what's left. I get the impression, and I used to think when I was younger, if I stopped doing everything, there is nothing there. Not even peace. Not even there's no contentment in nothingness. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a funny
yeah,
thing, nothingness. Philosophical. It's a very powerful philosophical issue because it's the basis of Taoist escapism, escaping the trap of mentality or the overthinking nature. It's the same principle as in Zen. When you Zen, you stop thinking. It's
right.
just a way of saying stop thinking because you are already peaceful naturally. So just remember that. And oh yeah, okay.
I think we're taught in many ways to just basically to be concentrated, always doing like a hamster is in a pen. That's what we are. We are just boogity, 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 and we're getting nowhere. We're not getting anywhere spiritually. You follow what I'm saying? We're taught that we're supposed to. Well, you need to get a job. You need to You need to get an education. You need to do this. You need to do that. And all these. You need to. You need, and all the time. And we don't we as part of the programming in some ways here, which our parents and our grandparents apparently did not know, and didn't get to the point of wisdom, so to speak. But anyway, the point simply is that she says she's from Buckingham, UK.
Ah, not far. I'm in Surrey.
Buckinghamshire. I'm sorry.
Yes. That's next door.
Oh, it's next door.
Next door.
Okay.
I'm in Surrey. Yeah, she's not far from me at all. Yeah.
Okay. So she'll be knocking your door next.
That's all right. She seems quite nice.
Yeah. She said that the need to do rather than just be. I think that's It's we've been trained as almost like a computer mind type of thinking, programming, memorizing this and that, or how to act. Our parents at a very young age would now look here, Brant. This is how you put on your clothes, such and such. You need to put them on properly, such and such. So this is what you need to do, and you need to go over here and set up your such and such. And all these things we're being already at a very young age are being told to be busy. We're not actually encouraged to be quiet.
Yeah, there's two big things I'd say to that. One is in Thailand, for instance, when youth in their teens break the law and they're arrested and they're thrown in jail, they're taught to meditate.
Ah,
Very different. They'll all be sitting there meditating instead of fighting each other from one cell to another and doing shouting and screaming. They're all sitting there meditating. But that's the East. They have a different approach to things in the East.
right.
Another thing is doing things. There's the issue. This thing called the great work. We're supposed to be doing the great work, which is making the means by which we can produce the heavenly cloud. That's effectively what that boils down to. And that means doing things, studying, thinking, contemplating.
Right.
These are all doing things. So there's a distinction between not doing, going Zen, and actually engaging and doing things. We have the ability to do both. And because there are both, both are going to be represented as the key, what we call the keys to heaven. They've been established as the keys to heaven. These are called. So the first key is Zen. It's the Zen thing. It's the epitome of not doing anything. The second key is the epitome of doing things. So the two, and now you have the two extremes that are going to unify and become one as well. So the keys unify. in this sense. So it's a combination of not doing and doing at the same time. It's the old yin yang thing, natural unnaturalness or unnatural naturalness. You combine two opposites and make them into one. So you're combining not doing, and you do that first. So you zen first. That's the samadhi, the sacred trance idea, and you'll expand your own spiritual nature to your own awareness, such that you become aware of God in you, as if He's outside of you. But it's the highest aspect of your own self that everybody has. And then when you encounter that, He'll literally walk into you and unify with you spiritually, and you can't understand the heights of this being. You can't mentally understand the heights of God at this moment, because it's way beyond you. So instead of challenging your intellect by unifying with you, you fall in love. And so the meeting and union with God is all and only about falling in love, because that you can relate to easily. Anyone can relate to falling in love. Anyone. It doesn't matter how powerful your intellect is. Anyone can fall in love. But not everyone can solve a riddle.
Right.
So it's the solving of the riddle of unification, because everything apparent to you is dual. And so it's a difficult thing to ask you to understand unification, or one thing only, the nature of one thing only that has no comparison, is completely different to this dualistic nature that we're so used to. So you must learn and elevate your understanding to the highest point, where you're literally one step away from unifying everything in understanding. And that's you solving that riddle. So there's the work. There's the work you do during your life. You study to understand only. It's just about understanding, how things work and what have you. Don't be put off by scientists. Don't, because the media ruins that whole thing for people. It makes you think that they're all crazy when they're not. It's just the media, as we've mentioned before. The media ruins people's appreciation of things, because it's not realistic. See, so people, and that's mostly what people receive in society. They're no longer. You're only in university for 3 years. You're not there for the rest of your life. So where's your source of information coming from? Well, thank God we have the internet. I say, thank God for that. Because we can seek out the right information then, and really the second key is only about understanding, nothing more. It has nothing to do with falling in love. The second key, it's about your mentality, your intellectual appreciation of reality.
Yes, and Layla's got a question for you. She's got here, she said, would you differentiate the way in which we do things? And then she says, inspired action versus outside influences.
Yeah, there's both. What was that first bit again? What was the first sentence? Sorry?
The first question, she said, would you differentiate the way in which we do things? In other words, either, I guess, put the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart, so to speak. Inspired.
Yeah.
Then she goes into, she said, inspired action versus outside influences. Which
with outside influences, the choice is yours, because you can be conned, or you can be told useful information that you can act on. Obviously, this reminds me of a war. If you've got bad intel, you're going to make a mistake, and people's lives are going to be taken as a result if you make mistakes in that case. Obviously, in normal life, that doesn't happen, but we can still succumb to consequences if you make a bad choice. And this idea of outside influences is only a potential. Anything anyone says, including me, it's just a potential idea for you. Right. You're the one who has to prove truth to yourself.
Have to prove it to yourself, right?
Yeah, I can't prove it to you. I can explain it to you in the best, easiest logic, and you can see, well, okay, that makes sense to me. But that's as far as it goes with somebody else. It has to be you that fuses everything together in your own mind.
I think I think I understand. I'm thinking that basically she's saying before part of the last 5 or 6 years or whatever in my own life, I have taken what I call outside influences, so to speak. I've looked into certain things, and what's happened to, which I've told you, I was following a gentleman named Richard Rose, which was about Zen, and followed that for about a year and a half. So I bought his books and read and they met with these people, such and such. Eventually, I came to the conclusion that simply is it wasn't the truth. It wasn't the whole truth. It
Right.
was some truth, but it
Yes.
wasn't the whole truth. They were talking about Zen Buddhism, but they didn't carry the other part of the wagon, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, so what I understand simply is I took what I felt at that point, took what I felt was true, and took it, and discarded the rest of it. You see,
Right.
so I knew that something was still not right. There were some things that some things didn't add up between the personalities and such and such and such. And I knew they did not, this is something that really bothered me, they did not really give any explanation personally, that is individually sharing what they had. They just said, I had an experience, such and such. And it was never really elaborated on what really took place with them, you see, which
Yeah.
bothered me. It was like, okay, if this is, if you got details of what's happened to you, why don't you share that? Okay, why don't you
Yeah.
go into that whole thing? So,
Yeah.
and so what's happened simply is there have been who have done this. Seriously, they have. There's guys who are part of this group have written books, and they've come in, and Phil, they've come in with the Bible, and they've come in with a different perspective of it that's totally different than what it's meant to be. So what's happened simply is they're still blind.
Mm-hmm.
You see, in other words, they've come in and says, I have a book here by a gentleman I bought a couple years ago. And he goes in and elaborates about what I would call the scripture, such and such. And then he goes into it and I'm saying, okay, so all you're doing is you're coming in and putting your own spin onto scriptures.
Yeah.
In other words, you're personifying it. And what's happened simply is you're still in darkness because you don't know what it really means.
That's
So
right.
that's what the essence of it is. And so, and they're, this is a decent group. They don't charge, they charge costs for books. They're not out to make money. So I'm not saying they're bad people,
Yeah.
but
Sure.
The point simply is they never elaborate what I would call the personal thing that happened to them. That's what really bothered me. Okay, anybody can say I've had something gone in, I've had experience, but that doesn't define it. Tell me the essence of what happened to you. Get into the details of the whole thing. So anyway, she's got a question here. She says, Layla says, how do you define the difference between discernment and judgment?
Yeah. Discernment is seeing what there is for what it is. Judgment is having an opinion on what should be done about that.
That's a second step, so to speak.
Yeah. And of course, you learn not to judge. If you might not do that anyway. Some
you
people
come
are.
to the point simply is that
detach. You're not attached to what goes on around you. It's nothing to do with you. You didn't create those events. Why would you associate with them?
Right.
This sort of thing. Remain happy.
Go ahead.
No, just to say, remain happy in yourself. You should be able to maintain happiness and manage that in yourself, regardless of what's going on in the world, because it will always be messed up. The world, always. So you'll never be happy if you're looking for a world that you want to see is not going to happen in a world full of individual free will.
No, because it's going to be chaotic.
It's just automatically chaotic, but it doesn't have to be well organized like that. It's not, it doesn't have to be the perfect society. There is no such thing other than to allow people to be themselves is the perfect society.
Yeah, I was
allow
interested.
people.
Go ahead.
It's not about conformity. It's about self-expression. A perfect society. But you'll never get that because of free will and because we're developing from ignorance to enlightenment, supposedly.
Right.
Most people are not enlightened, so they're going to behave in a lower manner, and they're going to hate you, and you're going to have problems and all this sort of thing. They're going to turn into animals. This sort of behavior is more animal, fighting.
Yes.
Competing.
My turf, whatever. You're on my turf. You're So why are you taking a personal? So why are you taking a personal vendetta sort of deal that you're on my turf or you're bothering me or such and such, and so people tend to fight back such and such.
Yeah,
you see,
the human has a shadow.
Yeah,
The human has a subconscious that they don't understand. You need to bring the content of your subconscious into your conscious awareness to realize yourself as well as part of this process, to look at yourself honestly, and see that you have a monster. The physical nature is a monster. And
Yes.
that is not you. You are not that monster. It's as if your physical body is a beast that you have been given a saddle to ride on, and you're riding this beast, and you have to learn to control it. It's exactly like that, having a physical body. You're never going to see it like that if you think that I'm just a physical body. You're not riding a beast anymore. You are the beast. No. You are not the beast.
Right.
The beast is what you get to use in life, and you have to learn to control whatever it is. So you need to understand it. You need to know your enemy, as it were, because this beast is your enemy, because it will kill you if you're not careful.
Right.
Yeah,
She
it
says,
will kill you.
sorry. She
So I
said,
just saying.
yeah, go ahead. Did I interrupt you? I was going to
I finished.
She said, Layla said, I agree. Observation without judgment is key. I like to describe judgment as discernment with a attitude.
Yeah, you can say it. You can put it like that. I would as well. I'd say it like
Right,
that as well.
right.
Yeah.
And then she says, another statement, she says, it can be a challenge as I guess we all have preferences of sorts.
Yeah. And don't be too harsh on yourself as well. There's an issue of learning to forgive oneself, because we have a relationship with ourselves that is eternal. You'll always have your own relationship with yourself, whether you're in the body or not. It's not
Right,
the body you're having a relationship. Well, you are having a relationship with your physical body, but you can talk to yourself whether you have a
correct.
body or not. Do you
Yeah,
see what I mean? See, in a way, you have a relationship with your own self, and you'll
right,
always have that. So you may as well be the best person that you can be with to
right,
yourself. So you forgive yourself
right.
always. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, this
Instead
is
of
this is part of the programming simply is I know even I life simply is you go back in the past perspective and you say, man, I really fucking messed up here. I just blew it. I don't know what I was, what was I thinking of? Why did I do this?
yeah,
And a lot of times simply is, I gather simply is, I concur that simply is relationships in the family, close knit family, or whatever. I think that people are there for a purpose in your life. Your brother, I had a brother, still have a brother. Used to have a mom and dad. Naturally, they both are deceased. But the point simply, I had a relationship with them. Obviously, I was put in that situation for a reason. Either I chose that or it was chosen for me. But the point simply is that you look back retrospectively and say, man, what is that? What was I thinking in this? But it was always about, see, it was always about me and protecting my somewhat identity, although that's not always true. It could be the other way that people don't respect your boundaries, so to speak. But you see, uh, part of it also simply is that you, as you get older, you want to become more and more independent, and that allows you to basically begin to dig or search out deeper things.
mm,
This idea simply, as I share in the past here, for people want easy answers, so they'll go about an inch thick, but they will not what I call dig deep and go
mm,
a foot deep. And what I mean by that is digging, looking for knowledge and wisdom in
yeah,
life and digging. And it doesn't have to be a wide path, so to speak, because that's not what you want. You really want a narrow path because you basically come down in certain things in your life. Well, that doesn't make sense. Chunk that. That's not true. Chunk
yeah,
that, and you get to the point. Simply, it's more and more narrow, but it's far deeper. Is what I
yeah.
would say.
Yeah,
So
yeah. There's an issue with I find being honest enough with yourself to think, well, I think I've got it, but really, do I? To question something you think is right as well, just to have an attitude like that, because if truth is always true, then it must be utterly robust, and it doesn't need. You're the one who's maneuvering towards it. It is not maneuvering towards you in any way, shape, or
no,
form, because
it's
it's not
almost
going
like
to change.
it's somewhat stationary, and you're moving.
Exactly. Exactly. So you're born in darkness and you're looking for this light called truth. You're wandering around and you slowly get closer and closer to it and you find it. But it takes honesty, because if you start getting self-righteous as some people do. When people get religious and they haven't done any other studies like science, for instance, or psychology that questions things properly, if they're not used to that mentality of questioning, they'll just accept what they're being told religiously.
Correct.
So you see people doing all sorts of crazy things, like they think God has sent them on a mission all of a sudden, from the church,
Right.
because a priest leant over to them and thinks that they might be good to do some work over there. And he's mentioned something, and now the person thinks it's a message from God that they must do it. And if it goes wrong, that they'll feel terrible. There's all these terrible things associated with that. There is no pressure. I just want people to know there is no pressure when you meet the divine. There's no pressure to do anything at all. It's not about doing stuff as such. Afterwards, because you can relax, totally relax. There's nothing to do at all, really. The world doesn't need your help, by the way. It doesn't, because it's going to find it anyway. The only reason I came online after deliberating over it for months and months, I thought, is it worth me talking about this in the first place? Because I'm going to be attacked over it anyway. So is it going to be worth it? So you evaluate all these things, and I do it because people want to know, and I wanted to know before. And where was the people to explain it to me? It has to be done like this because no one else is going to explain it to you. The length and effort I had to go to because there was no one to explain it to me was outrageous and stupid and ridiculous. And I shouldn't have had to have done that. But I did that because I had no help. Do you see? So I had to go to those ridiculous lengths. I had to look into this stupid thing because it might have something of benefit, but it didn't. Oh, well, I've just wasted a month of my life. It doesn't matter. I've got plenty more of that. It takes for an attitude of not being worried about having your time wasted as well.
Well, not being discouraged that you basically spent this time and effort.
Never be discouraged. The truth is always, it's the only thing that exists. So you're going to find it automatically.
Yeah. Well, the other thing simply is that you get up and get back on the horse, so to speak. And you try to jump what I would call like a steeplechase type of deal. You're trying to conquer, see certain things, and it's not going to be granted to you. Truth is not going to be granted to you in a all-consuming one thing. It happens in like immense bliss at first. You're going to be on a proving ground to see if you really are somewhat worthy to pursue these things. So you're seeking these things. So you're going to have to get back up on your horse and basically start digging again and continue on. And eventually certain things pieces start coming together. You say, well, I see this. So I don't need to deal with this particular group anymore. I need to move away from this particular group, whatever person. And I was going to share one thing I thought was interesting. I was reading something yesterday about a place called Harmony, Pennsylvania. The town was called Harmony, Harmoney, and it was a group of people who were supposedly religious, and they decided that they were in Pennsylvania and they wanted to go to another particular place. And so what happened is they moved to off the right on the Indiana-Illinois border, and they called their place now called New Harmony, Pennsylvania. And again, it was what we call spiritualists, such and such. And within 2 years, they'd gone in. They went in first and bought like 7,000 acres, and that's a lot of land back in the early 1800s. Okay, 7,000 acres, and it was near the river. If you understand, they're going to be a farming community, so they're going to grow crops there, such and such. And this is going to be a community. And you know what? They had a labyrinth. I think amazed to go through such and such there. It amazes me. It stuck out to me. It's like, wow, that's interesting. So they were also involved with spiritualists. They were also involved with that. I don't know if it makes any sense to you. That's unheard of. That was unheard of. Yeah. So, and I think one of these guys, if not two of these guys, eventually were from Europe. I think one was from Germany. But anyway, the point simply is that I looked at it and it's like, I said, this would be an interesting place to go because they speak about energy there. I don't know if that area's a ley line or not, but I just thought it was interesting. So, but anyway, Layla's got a comment here. She says, I think there is a difference between sharing from personal experience and imposing your ideas or perspective on others.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. That's an issue with ascension as well, because it's a personal experience, and yet it's always the same for everyone. So there's a natural insistence that this is how it goes. So if somebody disagrees with you, the first thing I think is, have you experienced it yourself? No. Then why would you challenge it? You're welcome to challenge it in the sense that you want to understand it, but to say that
Right.
that is wrong is bizarre, because it actually matches the content of all religions on planet Earth. So you have an edifice already established on Earth that says this is how it is. If you disagree with this, you're foolish. Not that you're a fool. It's just you must question. You see, but then there's the issue. Well,
That's
I
a
need to
legitimate
question.
thing to do. You got to
Right,
question.
but the purpose of questioning is not to refute, but to understand.
Right. Right.
So some people will question in order to refute, to pretend that you are wrong, that they just want you to be wrong because they have an agenda. They're not actually interested in
They
truth.
come in with agenda as though they have all the truth. In reality, they don't have all the truth. And
Yeah, yeah. It's always an issue with the truth, because the truth being ineffable in its essential nature, it's actually it contains discreteness and continuity truth. So I was just thinking, how do you define truth? Well, eternity is going to be an aspect of truth, because
correct.
truth is always true. So eternity is part of the nature of truth, because it's never not true. So it's always eternal. And this sort of thing. And of course, if you realize the seed condition that we talk about with you in the abyss and this cloud, you're the discreteness of the eternal abyss. And its continuity is visible to you when you're there. And of course, you've also got the cloud, which is the truth with flesh. So truth, being an ineffable quality or thing, now has a fleshy counterpart or aspect. That all of these things are aspects of the truth, the singular truth. It has characteristics. It's not just simply one thing that's so simple it cannot produce anything, because you can
Right.
only have that and there's nothing else. It's not quite like that. It's more complex, if you see what I'm saying. So when I say truth is singular and it's very simple, it is in essence, but it has these attributes. Like God has attributes. It's one God, but he has aspects, if you like. Like you have aspects.
Yes.
We have a thinking brain. We need to eat. That concerns our stomach and our guts. We
Right.
need to breathe and live, and our heart needs to beat. Otherwise, we drop dead. So there's functioning, and then we need to excrete. We need to we procreate. We sense, we feel, we touch, we taste. There's all these aspects and attributes to our one being. I'm a single being, but I have lots of attributes. So it's the same thing with truth. Do you see what I'm
Well,
saying?
yes. Yes. We've kind of, which is great. I'm glad to have the questions, Layla. Very much. Thank you.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you, Lena.
always like to have someone asking questions because
Mm.
it shows a desire for truth. Um, and but and we'll if Layla has some more questions, you're more welcome to share. Anything else? I was going to let Phil, if you want to, go ahead and share some of his part of his book, which was if you would like to do that. So I don't see anything she's sharing at this point. So
Yeah, sure. What
um,
I wrote this book on purpose. It's called Heaven is a Cloud.
okay.
Um, it has a larger title, but I had to keep the title to a minimum.
The publishers won't allow a sentence, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so what that says is this is the actual title of the book. It's Heaven is a Gnostic cloud of leverage that waters the seed of life at the root of time. So that's the actual title of the book, and that's what it's about. It's explaining how religions around the world, and it goes to different places in the world, this book, and shows you that they're all showing you the same understanding, that they all knew about this in the past, and it's simply not shared with the working class, let's say.
Right.
Because you can't possibly, at the level of working class, apparently, we can't possibly attain the heights of intellectual superiority that is required to pass the second key to heaven. Do
Well,
you get what I
yeah,
mean?
I think to simply keep the problem simply is that the working class is not they're concerned about simply putting bread on the table. They're
Right.
that, and so and and they're not. That's not their focus. But eventually, they will come to the process, and and each time they um, return here,
Mm,
they will again begin to move forward in certain ways, such and such.
yeah,
The
yeah,
question, I say to myself simply is, I think I've said something maybe to you about at one time there was roughly 4 million people lived here on this planet in the late 70s and early 80s. Now they're saying approximately close to 7.5 billion people. Okay, where have all these people coming into here? And my question here, real quick, since it just popped in my head, are these all quote unquote new souls or new people who have never been here before?
well, you have to ask yourself, where do we come from in the first place? If there's only one soul, how come there's a multitude of us? What happened there? Well, the universe has kind of produced that. This idea that we're talking about at T0, the start of time, as it were, or where there is no time. The nature of truth being having 3 or 4 aspects at once is going to produce lots of copies of an original, let's say. So each soul is exactly the same in essence. Spirit is the same nature all the time. So your spirit has exactly the same nature as mine, so we can relate to each other.
Right.
How come we're separated? Well, we were talking about the torus shape before as a philosophical means of accessing information, let's say. So if we think of the torus and we think of the very thin hole in the middle of it, let's say that's an individual person, and the entire torus represents the oversoul we call God. Well, if you cut the surface, because a torus is a surface, if we cut around the hole that goes down through the middle, and we think about the surface by looking at it, now that we've separated the individual from the whole, you can say, well, this is a process that now separates, it makes an individual soul from the oversoul, and it creates some sort of separation so they can have an individual nature. Right? If you turn the donut over again, there is no separation between the hole in the middle and the outer periphery, because it hasn't been severed. You haven't cut on that side. So even though you create a separation on one side of the donut, when you turn it around, there is no separation. So you can have the best of both. You can have your cake and eat it. This is an issue with spirituality, having your cake and eating it at the same time. You cannot apply this to anything physical, because once you have a cake and you've eaten it, you've got no cake left because you've eaten it.
So
you see what I mean? You've eaten the damn cake, so there is no cake. So you have to start again. You have to build up the energy to make the cake in the first place again. Yeah. So this idea of having individual souls, I mean, we're all the same soul. And when we reunify as angels of heaven, it's as if God has become a multitude of different people.
Okay.
So where do they come from? Well, people incarnating onto a planet are all individuals, yeah, but souls can be generated, as it were. You can create an individuated soul from God. He has that ability. God can do anything. God is limitless and infinite. So he can turn himself into any number of individuated souls. It also involves the nature of singular nature, which is zero-dimensional. And that most people are not familiar with the ins and outs of zero dimension.
Right.
It's a fascinating subject in and of itself. In fact, I explain it at the start of the book on purpose, because it's a technical discourse on spiritual nature that people can't get a handle on it. And because they can't get a handle on it, they can't get definitions together. And then you have people coming in from every single corner of the globe making stuff up. Because now it's relying on semantics instead of technicalities. You know, semantics are always, I mean, just think of human suggestion, how easy it is to suggest to people. That's just using semantics. It's spelling, the idea of spelling, casting a spell on someone is talking somebody into something that they weren't thinking of before, dragging someone into your nasty little agenda, you know, this sort of thing. So here is the essence of zero dimension.
Right.
See, it's a cone, and on one end of the cone you have effectively a singularity, the concept of singularity, that is zero size. And at the other end of the cone, of course, as you're expanding, you can expand to infinity. But there are technical issues when you go from a circle to an infinite expanse that you can override using geometry, because the circle in geometry represents the infinite already. So it's just a symbolic way of representing the concept of infinity, because a circle is an infinitely sided polygon. If I keep adding sides to a polygon and keep adding them, go all the way to infinity with a number of sides, it will turn into a circle.
Right.
So the circle already represents the infinite.
Correct.
So this representation is slightly beyond the simple nature of a circle being a discrete boundary. The circle in sacred geometry is not a boundary. In other words, it represents the boundless. Okay. So there's a conceptual issue when we're dealing with geometry, a very deep conceptual issue that we have to be very careful of. That most people won't bother with, because most people don't check anything. They just accept what they're told. They don't go and find out the details that make something a certain way. So if somebody says, yeah, the circle represents the infinite, well, how so? Well, it goes round and round. Well, no, yeah, it does go round and round, but only if you're moving. Well, it's not actually moving. So why does it represent the infinite? Well, it's an infinitely sided polygon. Now we have a technical definition that cannot be changed or manipulated or altered or restated in a way that doesn't make any sense. It's like that and like nothing else. Do you see what I'm saying? So definition is very important when we're dealing with these things, especially singular nature. And singular nature only has three aspects. It's either zero, which is a singularity, an infinite expanse in manifestation, or just a singular entity. And that is defined by you, the being. The discreteness of eternity is a singular entity.
Layla's got a question here. She says, could you say the cone is like a elongated ripple?
Yeah, you can associate a cone with a ripple. Yeah, if I drop a stone in a pond, it'll hit the water and the ripple will go out.
Walk past, right.
If I want to map that over time, I will end up with that cone shape that I've just shown you, because at the start of the point where the stone hits the water is T0 for that moment, for that event. That's where the event begins.
That's right.
So you can start and you can draw a cone as the ripples go out from the point of impact. So you'll end up with that same cone. So this cone is an archetype. It's a modeling archetype. That's why I use it so often. Right. Throughout the book. You'll see it throughout the book in various guises. It's even used to represent, if I show you this one, to represent your expansion into ascension. If you look halfway down, I better point it out. Here is the cone. There's the cone. It's just there.
Okay. She said something here real quick. She says, I guess that explains how the end is the beginning.
Yes, they are one and the same. That's right. It's a great big circuit. Yeah, they relate to each other. They have to. They have to. They wouldn't not relate to each other. How would that be? How could you end up in a completely different circumstance? The whole universe is what's called isotropic, meaning the same throughout. There's no difference. A star over there is the same as a star over there. If you see what I'm saying, it's the same nature expressed everywhere.
Right.
See, so the reason I like this book so much is because I put the Gospel of Judas in it. The Gospel of Judas is in here in its entirety, and I've explained every single thing in the Gospel, and it reveals everything about Christianity effectively in one go. And I think that's why they didn't want it in the Bible, because for a start, nobody wants to read a gospel about Judas, do they? Yes,
he's a bad guy.
Yeah, I don't want to read that. Most people will say, Judas, he wrote a gospel. How could he possibly write a gospel? It must be made up. Someone is evil. He's evil. He's not writing a gospel. He has no good news.
He has no good news. He was the guy who was he's the one who betrayed Christ, you see.
Right. So
this guy, how in the world he even got a publisher, much less anything else? I mean, he's a bad guy,
yeah,
in our minds.
yeah, right. So I've renamed it the Gospel of Twins on
Yeah.
purpose, so it doesn't put anybody off. Because people are put off so easily. I actually went through the Gospel of Judas on my YouTube channel in a series. I think there were 6 videos, and nobody watched it. Nobody. I had it took about a month to get 100 views, and I thought, well, that wasn't worth it. It was such an effort to go through it, and there's just no appreciation because people hate the name Judas. No one's gonna call their child. I must call you Judas.
That child will be persecuted for the rest of his life. I mean, that's what's happened. I can see that happening to a child. My name is Judas. And it's like, what kind of sick parents would call? Why would your parents give you that name? That's the worst name on the planet. You need to change your name, buddy. That's not true. I don't know if any parent would do that. I mean,
he'd have to shorten it to Jude.
Yes.
Then he'd be associated with the Beatles, and that's better. Yeah.
Hey Jude, right?
Hey, what's your name? It's Jude. Oh, hey Jude. So yeah,
I shortened it from Judas.
Yeah, don't mention that.
I've shortened it because I got a terrible reputation with the word Judas instead of Jude. So I grew up somewhat and changed my name. I wanted to be liked by somebody. Instead of, get away from me. Or we got some here. So, anyway.
So the whole thing's here. It's a fascinating read. I mean, it really is. It gives itself away as well because it uses coded sentences. It says things in a certain way. Like it'll say Jesus appeared to his disciples, not Jesus was wandering with his disciples one day. No, it says one day Jesus appeared to his disciples as if in a puff of smoke or something, and when you go into the language they're using, you realize they're telling you something. So I thought I'd give you a little example of that. Hang on a sec. So yeah, the opening statement, every one of these gospels and these Gnostic texts, they always open with a metaphysical statement and they close with it as well. So you redundantly know that you know what they're doing. Okay. So because you recognize these things, and that when they do it, it's so easy to recognize once you know what it is, that it becomes redundantly easy to see what's really being conveyed. So the first actual sentence in the gospel is, this is a secret message of judgment, a secret message of judgment. Jesus spoke with Judas Iscariot. A secret. They have secrets with each other, these two, apparently. Right. They're like twins. Right. Over a period of eight days. Notice every time you hear a number, you have to notice the number, 8 days, and the reference to the number. Here it's 8 days, and the word day is deus, which means God. And we normally associate days with the days of creation. Right. It's 7 days of creation really refers to 7 aspects of deity in manifestation. So it's the 7 kingdoms is what they're talking about. The 7 days of creation are just the stages of energy accumulation that lead to the generation of the Son of God. So 8 days is a reference to the eighth. It's also referred to as the 8th heaven. When you ascend, you're the 7th kingdom of rationale. And when you ascend, you go back to the origin, which was the first, but because you were the 7th, it's now the 8th. So what was the creative principle as a cloud is now the personal redeemer in the 8th heaven for you. 3 days, over a period of 8 days, 3 days before he celebrated Passover. So there's another giveaway. 3 days is metaphysics, 3 aspects of deity. That means 3 days, 3 aspects of God. That's metaphysics. Right. Before he celebrated Passover, which is a celebration of the act of ascension, spiritual ascension. See, so you complete God's metaphysics, and you complete the 7 days of creation when you ascend. So that first statement is telling you that you achieve the 8th heaven when you complete metaphysics and ascend, and that's what it's saying. It's not saying somebody celebrated Passover at a certain time of year.
Right.
You see, it's not saying that at all. It sounds like it is, but it's the same as 30 white horses standing on a hill. Yeah, but you said there were horses. Yeah, but they're teeth. But you said there were horses. Yeah, but they're standing on a red hill. What do you think a red hill is? Well, it's gums.
Gums.
I thought it was a sandy hill. or the earth was a bit red. And I imagined 30 horses standing there. No, there are no horses. Okay? Forget horses. It's just a reference.
Right.
So there you go. There's the opening statement. I mean, and it is all about completing the nature of manifest reality is now complete when you ascend. That's what that's just told you. But nobody knows that.
No. Let me ask. Elena's got a question here. Could it be that there are different translations or mistranslations from the original text, thereby changing the underlying meaning?
Well, there are actually 4 levels of interpretation with these texts. With Jewish allegorical texts or messianic texts, there's 4 levels of interpretation. There's a very personal interpretation. So if you're hearing a story about Cain and Abel, you're hearing about the jealousy one person can have over another, which is a very human condition.
Right. So that would be taken up from a certain perspective spiritually.
Yeah. So they're saying what they're really saying is, here is the root of jealousy. But we won't tell you that. We'll just tell you a story about these 2 brothers. One of them killed the other because he was jealous, because God favored him. And he wasn't favored. But you don't know why. So you need a deeper interpretation to understand where this problem has come from. And the root of the interpretation is at 0. So that the cloud as creative principle is crude and therefore able. All it can do is produce what's physical. Therefore, it can only bring what's physical to the table of God, the altar of God, and say, here are my offerings to you, God. Look, I've made this physical stuff. Is it not great? Get this away from me. Why get this away from me? Why is God so scathing to Cain? He's a son, isn't he? He's trying to offer something to God. Surely he has good intentions. And God just sweeps it away and says, go away from me. Why is that? Well, it's a story to tell you that God is spiritual nature, and spiritual nature does not accept physical nature. It is separate. It's different. The only acceptance of physical nature is the means to make a permanent home for spiritual nature. That's it. That's as far as it goes. That's as far as what's good about what's physical. So now we're going into a much deeper interpretation. Well, Cain is the creator. Abel is the redeemer. Abel is the son of God. Therefore, his offerings are all perfect and God loves him. You see, that's why. So it's no longer about being applicable to normal life where one person's jealous of another, but it contains that issue that we can all relate to as people. You see, so there are these different levels of interpretation.
There are different layers here. There's layers.
Yeah, there's another layer of interpretation that is called gematria. So if you read the original Hebrew, there'll be numbers under every single letter. Correct. And if you gather them together and add them up, it'll tell you something that you didn't know before. But you need to know the content of the Hebrew alphabet to divulge that, and that's a study unto itself. Every letter has its own meaning.
Yes.
You see,
yes. That's what Stan Tennant was doing also somewhat. These letters represent certain numbers.
Yeah, that's right. But he has a natural number. He uses base 3 counting to count the letters, because they're in triplets, in threes. But the gematria doesn't do that.
That's right. It doesn't.
It's very specific gematria, and it's another system. So Stan's system will give you the mathematics of it, the philosophical mathematics behind it, but the gematria will give you the human associative meaning behind the letters.
Okay.
An example of that, a very quick example, if you look at the Hebrew word for mother and father and add the numbers up for those 2 words and add them together, you get the number for a child. That the
Oh,
Hebrew word for child has a certain value. It's the same value as adding mother and father together. So there's this inherent coherence to the gematria of the use of Hebrew, and it's why certain letters are missed out or included in the text of Genesis, for instance. You'll find 6 letter A's in the first sentence, if I remember rightly, the first verse. And there are 6 A's on purpose because that's gematria. That's a technicality. It's a technical way of recording the nature of what they're talking about there,
so
which
so
goes
this
into
book
geometry.
says something about that already. It's like
Well,
pretty much
you see the numbers on the cover there
right,
in a triangular arrangement. That's called
right,
Pascal's triangle. Most people will learn that in mathematics, and it's the number 1. If you add 1 to nothing next to it, you get 1. So the
right,
one in the next row is 1 plus nothing is 1, and then on the right side, 1 plus nothing is 1.
right.
So then you add the 1 to the nothing next to it, and you get the 1 on the outside again at the third layer down. 1 plus 1 is 2, so there should be a 2 in the middle underneath those 2 ones, and on the outside is going to be a 1 again because 1 plus nothing is 1. So
Right.
that's an expansion of adding numbers together that gives you a multiplication in the end, and it's the same principle as the growth of a tree.
Okay.
What you have there, it
Yeah,
starts with a seed.
it's starting like it looks like a tree. Also, eventually, you see when you eventually have a root down here, a trunk, so to speak. Eventually,
Right.
that's why the triangle and the tree have similarities in certain ways.
Right, and you also have there the tree of life because there's only 4 levels shown on the cover. So you have the
Right,
first 4, you have the 4 layers of the tree of life. It's 1, 2, 3, and 4
right,
as well, but just spread out
correct.
like Pascal's triangle. Yeah. So that mountain, that cascade of numbers, is considered to be the birth of the universe and the creation and multiplication of things in the universe. It represents. It's an
So
old
did
way of looking at the birth of the universe. That.
so they did talk about this when you were taking your courses back in college. The
Yeah.
one,
Yeah. That's right. That's right. That'd be number theory.
okay,
It's called number theory. Yeah, but he talks about the esoteric appreciation of numbers. So number 4 represents stability, because if you
right,
put four legs on a chair, it's nice and stable. So 4 is
right,
stability.
right.
Yeah, but esoterically, it relates to the physical world as well, because
Right.
everything is 4. There's 4 elements, as it were,
Okay.
or
The
4 states of matter.
Layla has another comment here. She says, "Why would you say that parables and analogs are often used? Is it due to the symbolic nature or language of the universe?"
It's to communicate as quickly as possible. That's the point of a parable. A metaphor communicates
It's to the
very
point.
quickly. Yeah, it gets
It's
straight to the point. So you don't have to write. You don't have to read a book. You can just read a paragraph.
right.
The
He's not long.
purpose is to contain information quickly.
Yeah, he's not long-winded like Rudolf Steiner was,
That's right. That's
so to
right.
speak.
Yeah, yeah.
He's
He's very old-fashioned, that style of writing, to just go on and on and on and tell everyone every thought you can think of. It's
right.
nice, but
That's
but
nice. There's nothing wrong with it, but the point simply is that he could only talk to certain people who had the opportunity to even be there, much less than had to be able to have the ability to think somewhat. And
yeah,
that basically knocked out probably 95% of the people, if not more, probably 99% of the people.
yeah.
So the 99% would not have the opportunity to even get in that. So what happened? He, lack of a better word, he may have knowledge and good knowledge, so to speak, but it
Mm,
only went to a certain class or certain. It wasn't broadcast. Meaning, broadcast means throwing it out to all, like the parable of Jesus throwing the not Jesus. I say the farmer throwing out the seeds. It's broadcast. It's thrown
mm,
out. Okay. So what happens simply is spread out everywhere. It's not given to, okay, let me put it over here on the good soil, so to
mm,
speak. So I'll get a couple pieces over here and drop it on the soil and put it in the ground, such and such.
mm.
No, it's a completely different way looking at it. He would say simply is I'm just putting it on good ground, while broadcasting simply meaning it goes out to everything.
Yeah, yeah. No matter what. Yeah.
So the truth is offered for everyone.
Yes, that's right. That's
Not
right.
it's not segregated. It's not
That's
it's
right.
not based upon your who you are, how much money you have, how much knowledge you have is given to everyone.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, can you see the oppositional nature of somebody coming up with don't cast pearls before swine?
Right.
You see, if you go online, you have no idea who's listening to you. I've been accused of casting pearls before swine in the past just because I was online, as if you should not be online. You should just keep it to yourself and live your own life. But
Oh, yes,
I,
yes.
I, I disagree with that.
It's only for the privilege. Yes.
Yeah, I totally
I
disagree with it.
disagree with that wholeheartedly. No, that's not right.
Yeah.
I know. That's yeah.
I
That's
agree with the sowing the seeds in every direction. Whoever takes them up, fine. If
right.
they don't, that's the way
That's
it
their
is.
choice. They have free
That's,
will.
that's right. That's right. That's exactly
You
right.
can't, and they eventually will get to that point. One day.
Yeah, and hopefully you're a good example, a living example of the benefit of what you're talking about.
Right. Anyway, I've gotten you off tangent here, so go back what you were sharing also, Phil.
That's right. Yeah, there are some really funny things in it. I'm amused by the Gospel of Judas in some places because the first things it says, it repeats the same thing 3 times. I'll give you a quick example of that in 3 completely different sentences. And you read it, when you're reading it, normally we think time is passing on, from one sentence to the next, and then this happened, and then that happened, and then something else happens, and it's all happening in time. Not always, no. You might read 3 things one after the other that are actually the same thing repeated 3 times. And that's what we have here, right at the beginning of the Gospel of Judas. After that first opening statement, the first sentence says, "When he," that's the Son of God, appeared on earth, in an anointed physical person, of course, he did signs and great wonders for the salvation of humanity. That means perform greatly in wisdom and intelligence through the person who's anointed. The second sentence says, some walked in the way of righteousness, but others walked in their transgressions. So the 12 disciples were called. He started to tell them about the mysteries beyond the world and what would happen at the end. That's classic New Testament sort of speak, isn't it? Right. I will tell you what will happen at the end, the end of the universe, the end of time, and all this sort of thing. And the third sentence says, often he didn't reveal himself to his disciples, but you'd find him in their midst as a child. What?
Right. What's that?
Hang on, I thought he calls the apostles because he's an adult and they're all adults together. And this is saying, but you'll find him in their midst when he's as a child. He's a child in their midst. I don't get that. What has he lost 20 years of his age or something overnight or something?
Right.
That doesn't make any sense. So what's really going on? These are 3 sentences saying the same thing 3 times. So I'm just going through what I've written. We've just read the same thing 3 times with different words and emphasis. So appearing on earth in the first sentence is the same statement as you'd find him in their midst as a child in the third statement. It's exactly the same thing. Likewise, he did signs and wonders for the salvation of humanity. So you're thinking, well, some guy went around preaching and prognosticating, and people listened to him. They took him seriously for some reason, automatically. I mean, why would you do that in the first place? I don't know. Was it that obvious? Doing signs and wonders for the salvation of humanity is the same statement as he started to tell them about the mysteries beyond the world and what would happen at the end. Because that's exactly the same issue. Whenever Jesus Christ is talking or telling you something, it's the idea that he's giving it to an angel. An angel is learning these things because they are an angel, and this is angel learning. It's divine nature. It's divine, understanding. So it just says the same thing 3 times after its first statement, and therefore it has 4 statements to begin with that are all basically the same thing. And then it goes to the second portion of the gospel. So this is the first portion is pure metaphysics. It's explaining the issue of metaphysics to you. If you don't know that, you see, you're not going to fathom it. So you need to learn that as an initiate. You learn about metaphysics, and then when you read the text, you see, oh, I see they've done it like that, and they've applied it like that. So this becomes your study as an initiate, supposedly. You're supposed to read these texts, and because you're learning what they're really talking about, you're going to understand what they're really saying. And it's a secret, so that profane people can't just read it and start mocking it. They won't even understand it, so they can't even get to the point where they can mock it because they don't understand what they're reading. Right. See, there's a protection over spiritual issues that they don't want the sort of scum of the world to stand there mocking spiritual issues 24/7 because it's really irritating. You know?
Right.
So, and immediately the second portion, there are 7 portions to this gospel to represent the 7 spirits of God. And the second portion is Jesus criticizes the disciples. Criticizes. That doesn't sound very nice,
no,
does it? What's he doing criticizing? They're not as powerful as him. Why is he criticizing them? Surely he should be encouraging them and all this sort of thing.
Right.
But really, it's another coded statement, and it's a coded statement about the production of Jesus Christ, this one. And it says, one day, the classic one day, he was with his disciples in Judea. And immediately, that opening statement has given away what's truly going on. Because the word Judea means the praised one. So, and the disciples are your brain. So one day a person was about to ascend is what is being spoken of in this. But it actually says one day he was with his disciples in Judea. See, Judea being the praised one, it's a word that represents God as such. So it's a person who's finding God. He found them sitting together, practicing their piety, which is religious nature or holy nature. When he came to his disciples, sitting together, praying over the bread, he laughed. The disciples said to him, Master, why are you laughing at our prayer? Can you imagine? Can you imagine a guru who's leading a bunch of people, apparently, laughing at their practice when he's the one who told them what to do, apparently? It doesn't sound normal or right. Why are you laughing at our prayer? What have we done? This is what's right. He answered and said to them, I'm not laughing at you. You're not doing this because you want to, but because through this, your God will be praised. So what does it mean? What does that mean? That's a very simple statement. And most people read that and think it's Jesus. He saw his disciples, they're praying, and he's laughing at them saying, you're not doing that quite right. Yeah. But what does that last sentence mean? You're not doing this because you want to. Well, I thought they did want to, because that's what they're doing. And they're doing it because they want to.
Right.
But because through this, your God will be praised. So it's the second key to heaven we're being told about here, the moment of ascension. Your God will be praised when you ascend, because that proves God is real, and it proves you've unified with him. You've recognized the truth. God has recognized you. Everything is nice and fine and dandy. So you're not doing this because you want to. That's talking about the fact that we almost have to go against our physical nature. When we become spiritual, you learn more about the spiritual attitude and the spiritual nature itself, the truth of it, and how much more beneficial it is. And of course, that means going against your physical automatic nature sometimes. In other words, gaining control over yourself. Remember I mentioned riding your own beast before. Your physical body is a beast. You have to learn to control.
Right.
You grab the reins of your life and you take control over it from up here, from the intellect, from sense and reason and wisdom.
You do not let it take control of you.
Right. So by saying you're not doing this because you want to. Normally, people want to satiate they're just every day. I need to eat. I need to sleep. I have to satiate these things. I'm not happy if I don't do that, etc., etc. I need, a companion, etc. All this sort of thing. So these are the things we want to do. But when we have to go for truth, sometimes we have to accept that we are wrong. in our appreciation and appraisal of ourselves. I'd rather do this today, but in fact, truthfully, I need to do that today instead. And if I don't do that today, I'm going to have an even bigger problem in the future. It's just the imposition on us that we can't just walk around as animals satiating our basic needs. There's a requirement that is beyond it, that is spiritual.
There's a priority. It's basically making a prioritizing it. In other words, it's a higher priority.
Yeah, recognize. You need to recognize in the first place that that is the best idea, because some of the things you'll go through, you wouldn't want to go through if you didn't have your eyes on some kind of prize. You know, if you're not going to get anything out of it, why the hell would you put yourself through this?
Correct, because there's a higher principle here, there's a higher perspective here, so to speak.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
see, it's like like for example, if you even common sense, it's like I've got an issue with a roof that's leaking. Well, I can stay in my room and it still leak, or either it's going to get worse, or either I'm going to solve that problem. So it's a higher priority, so to speak, to deal with the roof. You see, which the roof, but I would say simply is a higher thing anyway, because it's higher than you are, so to speak, if you would
yeah, yeah,
understand that. But um,
yeah.
Layla says something here. She says, it sounds as if it is referring to purity of being and intention.
Yeah, you can say that. The thing with finding truth is that you don't need to do it all the time. You only need to when you have the ascension. This only happens at that point, and once it's happened, you don't need to do it again.
But I think
So
he's talked about before ascension is what I'm thinking.
yeah. But really, you live a normal life. I lived a normal life. As an example, I lived a perfectly normal life that I felt was quite normal. I even indulged in certain things in certain ways that were, maybe not very spiritual as such. I was never a monk, but I always kept my eyes on the truth, the idea of truth and what is it. And I did my best to veer myself towards that. So I don't think the path to truth is going to be perfect, because it sounds like Layla is saying, it's a good idea to be these lovely things, these perfect things, but you don't always have to be like that. Because if it boils down to understanding, it's not necessarily your behavior as such. Obviously, your behavior is going to determine your experience when you interact with other creatures and beings and people. But it's not so much about your behavior, because you can be quite rough in certain terms and still get there. Do you see what I'm saying? I get the impression that people think they have to be perfect in order to get there, when perfection is really just self-honesty. It's not your performance that you should be applying the word perfection to. It's your attitude that you apply perfection to. And the perfection of attitude, in my mind, is self-honesty. That's all.
Yeah,
Sure.
what was the you had a saying when you went to the second place in Cambodia, and it was 12 words.
Yeah.
And I remember it simply as that part of the verse that says, "You are mine," MIND,
Yeah.
which reveals
Awareness.
awareness, but also simply a priority that you put in your life to use your mind.
Mm.
You
Mm.
see. And
Mm.
I don't remember what the rest of it is, but it's 9 more words. And I thought it was interesting that there were 12 words that were actually emphasized here, which also goes up here with the brain also too, with 12,
Yeah.
the 12 tribes, the 12 disciples.
That's right.
You see.
That's right. Yeah. They're all the same. They're all the same 12. Yeah. The 12 signs of the zodiac are the 12 disciples, are
Right.
the 12 tribes of Israel. They're just different titles for exactly the same thing. It's the nature of the brain that allows you to ascend. It's the parts of the brain that are active in the engagement towards your ascension, these 12 aspects. Yeah. But you don't have to perform in a perfect manner. You see, that's the thing. I just get the impression that the spiritual community feels as though they have to be spiritual all the
But
time.
yeah, that's you cross your T's, you dot your I's. That was ingrained in me in
Mm,
Christianity. You
mm,
don't do these things, you do these things, such and such. So So this is how it's it's almost again doing the outward things, but in reality, what was going on inwardly. You see,
Hmm.
the idea simply is, and it might, you can correct me. Jesus spoke about the cup. You clean the outside, but reality, the inside is more important. You
Yeah,
see, you don't
that's right.
clean that. You see, so
That that's a yeah, that's a quote from Thomas. That's in the book as well.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
right.
I used that in a chapter that talks about the universe, and that I put the universal stuff in there because it's very, very important for people to realize that you can fathom what is out there. You can. It's not such a minefield as you think. Just because of media, it puts people off the media. A lot of things. I think it's a real mess up. So I make sure that there's solid stuff in the book for you to latch onto. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that um, it's again, like I said, it's earlier, like I said, we're taught in religion or Christianity to be outwardly such and such, but in
Mm,
reality, simply is nothing's going to be. It's going to be phony on the outside unless the inner part is actually got its act together. Meaning that will be a reflection of what is taking place internally within you
mm,
that reflects on the outside. So if you are the light within, that would be broadcast, so to speak, or shown. The light would be revealed when you're on the outer light. But the
mm.
problem is simply is people are acting instead of doing, so to speak. I know maybe that doing is not a good word, but they're not. They're coming from an empty cup instead of a full cup.
Well, I don't think that people who pursue religion are being told to what subjects they should be pursuing because they're simply read texts, religious texts, as if that's enough. And back in the day, I suppose it might have been, but if you don't understand what the text is saying, there is no relating any information to you in the first place.
Well, I remember I was so involved with Christianity to the point simply I bought commentaries. In other words, I bought commentaries from a particular teacher
Mm,
who would relay what is the deeper meaning, supposedly, of what Jesus is saying.
right.
You
Well,
see,
you can. I was
what
going
I'm
to say,
saying simply is they didn't have the answer neither, but what I'm trying to say simply, my intention was trying simply, let's get to the crux of the matter here. This guy's a higher up, as a theologian, whatever, and he'll tell me what it really is talking about, and I'll spend some money and showing, and buy a book, and he reveals a certain book, and I'll look into it. Oh, I see that, but I didn't understand simply he comes from a preconceived ideas of what Scripture is, so his
mm,
preconceptions were wrong too. You see, that
mm,
you see that's how you kind of get a feeling like, wait a minute, this is not quite the right path I thought it was, so to speak. But anyway, um,
yeah. You're
I
gonna. I was going to say you're gonna get explanations from people like that who do commentaries at the human level because their teaching method is to relate to the human nature
right,
and to help you apparently with your growth in the religion. So it's going to be at the human level. Well, Jesus meant that you shouldn't behave like this and that kind of thing. They're never going to tell you, well, Jesus is the cloud at the root of time. In fact, do you see what I'm saying? Because you
yeah,
can't relate to that. So
right,
their commentaries will always stay within a certain bound.
correct, right.
Yeah,
There was a again, like I said, there are many presuppositions. As I look back on it now, I see the presuppositions that they use because they use what I call doctrines and dogma to explain Scripture. So they're, like I said, they're coming in with a veil themselves and saying this is what Scripture is saying. When in reality, they never have had any type of any ascension taking place in their life. So it's
right.
just simply more blindness or more blind thinking to express to other people. And as though here I've got a doctorate degree in theology or whatever,
Yeah,
and I'm approved. I've
yeah,
been such and such.
yeah. So
And
you should listen to me. Yeah, yeah,
right, right. And that's what many people you go to the okay, all right, I'll do that. I'll spend some money here, such and such, and I'll find such and such. So she says, Layla says another quote, maybe not perfect, but true to oneself, where thoughts, words, and actions are in alignment.
mm, Yeah, the one of the issues with the statement like "be true to yourself" is if you're a psychopath and you're true to yourself, you'll go out and kill people. Do you see
Right.
what I'm
I
saying?
wasn't thinking of that, but yeah, I see
No,
what you're
no,
saying.
no. But when we say these things in the spiritual community, they have sayings that you can pull down because they don't always apply properly, like that. When people say, I must believe in myself. Yes, you must believe in yourself. But there are other issues going on there, because if you're a psychopath and you believe in yourself, you'll believe that it's right for you to go and harm people, and
Right.
you'll be self-righteous about it, and you'll say, well, I'm fully justified in behaving like that, and everyone
Right.
else is scratching their heads wondering why you think like that. Was
Right.
because you're a psychopath and you
Right.
haven't actually thought things through properly,
Right.
but you were true to yourself. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
some sayings
Right.
can be
Right.
taken,
Right. Because you basically
applied.
said, I've dealt with someone who was doing something wrong in society. You see, that would be their thinking. I did something, these people were, causing harm, and they were, I wanted to solve that problem. So I got rid of them.
Yeah,
I dealt with them.
yeah.
That's
So
in their it's in their mindset, so to speak. You see,
yeah.
they would
So
and they would say, "Look, I've done society good,"
yeah,
supposedly,
right. Yeah,
but you didn't have that right. You don't have that right to do to kill someone or eliminate someone at all
right.
in that
Yeah.
respect.
Unfortunately, Muslims who want a holy war will self-righteously argue with you that you are an infidel and worthy of death and nothing but death because you
Right,
don't agree with them.
right,
They'll tell you that it's because you don't believe in God, because you're not a Muslim, and only Muslims believe in God, apparently. So they have every right to kill you. So if you
yeah,
tell someone like that, well, you must be true to yourself, and say, yes, we are true to ourselves. We kill people who disagree with us.
right, right.
So
Here's
being
a
true to yourself is not an issue. Being true to truth is the issue.
right. Uh, then she says something else. Playlist prepares by intention. It could be how, where, and why one focus is directed. Example: desire to know puts you on the path to knowing.
Yes, it does. That's right. That's exactly right. Curiosity will get you there. That's right. Wanting to know will get you there if you
And then
continue.
something else she stated here. She asked a question. So where do thoughts originate? Are they internal or present in the field?
It's an
Meaning, I
aspect of
guess
your
she's talking about.
nature.
Pardon
Yeah,
me.
when you're not in your body, you're still thinking and imagining as you normally do. It's an aspect of your true nature. You can imagine anything you want. Your imagination is limitless and infinite,
Okay.
naturally. So where thoughts come from, they come from you spiritually without your physical body. This links to the idea of leverage as well, becoming leverage to your body, so that you take action according to what you thought, and your thoughts originate in your mind, in the ethereal nature of your being. Is the origin, just like T0 is the origin, but that's a metaphysical state.
Right. Right.
You know? It's the ultimate reason for the universe, so to speak. Because it's like asking equivalently, well, what's the point of this in the universe? What's the point of that? Well, everything goes back to this one point, this one origin, and that is trying to do this. It's trying to produce something, and that's why everything is like that.
Right. Anyway, I was just
Mm.
asking,
Yeah,
questions here. So
I'm afraid I might probably have to go in a second because I've just had visitor turn up.
okay,
Um,
a visitor. It's not the kitty cat.
no, not the cat this time, but I don't think he'd probably come back though anyway. He's like two or three times a day he comes in. Yeah,
Wow.
that's the
Okay.
third time today he's been here earlier. It's 'cause he
Okay,
gets.
so you want to wrap up here in a minute or two, like you're
If
saying?
that's okay, yeah. It's been an hour and a half. I need to get on with something at the
Okay.
moment. Yeah,
Okay. All right. Okay.
yeah.
All right.
We can pick
What
it up again next. Where are
uh
we?
do
Next
you
week.
want to try next week on Monday?
Monday's okay. Yeah, Monday's fine.
Okay, same time.
Yeah, yeah. 2. Yeah, 9 o'clock for you if that's all right.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Okay. Mr. Mensa's in here also.
Hello, Mr.
Uh,
Lindsay.
so you had a couple people here, Layla and Mr. Mensa, making some comments here. It's good to see you, Mr. Mensa. Said cat whisperer. Okay. Uh, but anyway, Phil, I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, well,
I
good.
know
Thank
I
you.
know we kind of got off. I know we kind of went all over the place here, but I think that's okay.
That's
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 how.
good. Yeah, it's good because it exposes a lot of ideas, and something I think I'll go through next time is the manner in which things are said in biblical texts. It makes you think a certain way, but it's not quite like that. There are bog standard, down to earth other ways of saying the same thing that will make somebody go, oh, I see. It's just talking about that. It's not some highfalutin, weird religious thing after all. Some of the comments that are made in the Bible, for instance,
Right.
we'll go through that next time. I'll show you next time because it
Okay.
makes it sound like it's more than it really is.
Sure. 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 So we're
Yeah.
well again. You're going to be sharing this from your new book,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
again, you're welcome to go to Phil Langdon's site on YouTube, and you can, as you go down and search, you'll find it. It'll show his ebooks, and you can download those books for free.
Mm.
And if you choose to want to have a personal copy, I think you can order those from Amazon as well as the right
That's right.
place.
That's right.
So
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
this is one thing I thought was interesting about the Amazon deal. Those books are they're not books until you make an order, and then they actually print
Print
it.
it. That's
Yeah,
right.
I didn't even know that. I thought they already printed them such and such. No, no, no. They do not even. It blows my mind. They do not even quote unquote have any books on the shelf until
That's
they
right.
get an order.
That's right.
It blows my mind. So it shows, show here I buy a book and it says published, and it says on the back page says, August 24th, and I was like, wait a minute, that's the day I ordered it.
Yeah.
That's yep. So it's amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for being here, and we'll see you next week on Monday at the same
Okay.
time.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very
Phil,
much. Thanks,
have a
Brian.
good weekend.
Take care. You too. You too. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Bye bye.
Bye.
I'm still here live myself, so I appreciate you for asking questions, Layla. Um, and like I said, this is something new for me, for Phil. This has only happened in the last 4 or 5 months, and this is all. I come from a different perspective. That is, what's the word? I didn't study math or science. I studied more to do with logic, and also history and political science, so to speak. So my perspective is completely different than his. I'm not saying he's wrong. That's not saying that, but he understands a lot of what I call the foundations and what's here, um, and I think that's important. And so anyway, we'll try next week. He was a few minutes late. He has a kitty cat that comes out, comes see him, and I think that always gets his attention because he feeds the cat. So, but we'll be back next Monday at the same time at 9 o'clock, which will be 2 o'clock you guys' time. That is you in England is. So think about some things you like to. One thing I would say, simply is think about some things you might want to ask Phil the next time he's on, so that he can answer some of your questions. I think that would be good. We could do that. I mean, you can still go through his book, but we can also ask questions that you feel like are quote unquote pertinent. You want to know some answers. You want to know the answer simply is, maybe to the point simply is what did happen at Cambodia? Why has it happened there? Those type of things. Or basically look in scriptures, such and such. Why does the scripture say such and such? Or some other particular book you've been reading, especially on the non-Amadi scriptures. So anyway, thank you for all being here. I wish you a good day. Thank you, Layla, for being here. Thank you, Mr. Minza, and a couple other people have been in here. Thank you for being here. And we'll see you next week on Monday. Okay? Take care. Bye-bye.